Today on Friends, Loves, and Life from a Queer Point of View, I'm talking with someone whose name you might already know if you love beautiful spaces, Dan Foley. Dan's been designing for almost 4 decades, and his work has this incredible mix of style, warmth, and personality. He's an award-winning interior designer, and you may have seen Dan on NBC's American Dream Builders or Showtime's The Real L Word. Dan has also published a book. It's All in the Mix, Designs for Living Well. I've put a link in the show notes below. From his early days surrounded by travel and creativity to now leading major design brands and creating hundreds of products, Dan has stayed grounded in one simple belief: that great design should feel personal, welcoming, and accessible, not intimidating. He's been named to Designers Today Power List and recently stepped into a new role, as he announces here on this podcast, all while continuing to grow his own lifestyle brand. Dan is all creative energy. He just loves what he does, and that passion shows in everything he touches. So today we're diving into his journey, how it all started, what keeps him inspired, and why living well is something we can all design for ourselves. Here's my conversation with Dan. Dan Foley, welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Before we get in, because there's a lot I want to talk to you about your book and about your awards and your career and all that stuff, but I wanted to sort of go back a little bit to
Pardon me.
Young Dan in your childhood. Like, what were the earliest moments and influences that sort of sparked your love for design?
I will tell you, I don't ever remember a time that I wasn't interested in design and beauty and things like that. My grandfather was a very creative person and a self-made entrepreneur and a woodworker, an artisan in that way. My parents and grandparents traveled the world, so I was influenced by that constantly. It was always there. My mother had her own decorator, as my grandmother did, and so I had that influence. We had the home I grew up in redone a few times. Well, once because it burned down, but other times just because. But so it's always been there, and it's always been an interest of mine. And I grew up, a child of my generation watching TV. But my big thing was old movies, classic film. And I found myself greatly influenced by what I saw there. And
stage
production.
Design. What pushed you into like Drexel University? Like you were just already like, I'm going to be a designer.
It is what I wanted to do. My parents were very concerned. They did not see the profession as a legitimate one, even though my mother always worked with a decorator. They were worried that it wasn't big enough, wasn't professional enough. How would I make a living? How would I have health insurance? All of those things. And so when I continued to push, my parents got a little more serious with me, and my mother actually met with her designer and to have a conversation about that and how it works and that sort of thing. And Drexel came highly recommended because Drexel in Philadelphia, which was started as an engineering program, and expanded into design. They were very, very specific about their design program. It was very technical. Their theory was, if you don't have good taste, we can't teach it to you. But what we can do is train you to always be able to work as a professional in that field. So if you come in already as a creative person of good taste, or what I believe to be, I learned everything else that I needed. And so it was a very intense program, and as I mentioned, technical, so it could be frustrating at times, but I'm very grateful for it. There are other design schools, other great design schools. At that time, this was the only program that really focused on the business of the design industry.
And were you already at this time thinking about products? like individual products?
I always did. I was always very interested in things of beauty, but in every realm, not just furniture and products, but I've always enjoyed fashion and jewelry and all of the things of beauty and art and whatnot. And I like to surround myself with them. I grew up in a household of people who were travelers. So being surrounded by beauty and things that were really interesting and unique in that respect was just part of my own upbringing, my own lifestyle. And so when it came to doing product, it really stemmed from becoming a designer and wanting what I wanted for my clients, whether I found it readily available or not.
What was it like when you had that first product? You were like, I've created this product and I'm going to put
Yeah.
it out there. And then the other question is the same with a client, like
Yeah.
doing a home or an office. I don't know where you started, but what was that like? Do you
Well,
remember that feeling?
I do. I remember the first client, of course. I actually started my firm as an extra credit project my senior year of design school. So, and the premise was, because I got credits for it, needless to say, was that I would start this firm. So now I only consulted. So I went to friends of my parents and I consulted for them. And so through this extra credit program I designed, with my professor, I was able to get into the sort of the nitty gritty of the design business,
Hmm.
meaning this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how I'm going to charge you, this is what I'm going to do for you, this is the information I'm going to give you, those sorts of things. So that was really exciting. And then, of course, going forward, I went to school with a young woman who was a dear friend at the time, and her father was a resort developer. And so she and I formed a partnership early on in those first few years. And so from the time I graduated college, design school, um, I had work on my desk. So we were designing
That's amazing.
spaces within one of her father's hotels up in the Poconos of Pennsylvania. We were redesigning a garden hotel that was in Fort Lauderdale. And this was all in the first 6 months of starting the firm, first 6 months after graduation. So I was very fortunate in that. And if I didn't have the training that I had had from Drexel, it would have been a disaster. We also, remember,
Hmm.
part of the reason my parents wanted me to go to Drexel was we worked in trimesters. And then we had a fourth semester where we did work study programs, where the school actually helped us to find jobs to work within the field and things like that. So basically, we went to school year round for those 4 years. So I already had practical experience
Okay.
when I started out, on top of the type of training that I was given there.
So is it going to the school that gave you that confidence? Like,
I think so. I think it was also just blind confidence, just dumb young luck. Uh,
hey,
I also, honestly, I remember thinking to myself, I have nothing to lose at this point. If I start
wow.
this firm right out of college, what do I have to lose? Right? I was still living at home and, I had a car, right, that my parents gave me. So I really could sort of knuckle down in that first year and figure out whether or not it was for me or I could do it on my own. And that was 38 years ago.
That's still an amazing attitude for a young person to be like, what have I got to lose? I'm just going to do it.
Again, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so it was not unusual. My grandfather started a tire business way back before I was born and before my parents even met, and he was enormously successful. He was the largest importer of Michelin tires in the United States for many years, and so I come from that background.
Hmm.
So doing it was not unnatural to me.
Okay. Okay. And so now it's 25 years. No, you said 38.
38.
38 years later.
Yeah.
Did you at that time even have the vision of where you are now?
I'll be honest, I really did. I always knew that I wanted to do more than just, decorate people's homes.
Mhm.
Um, I always had a bigger vision of what it could be. It just took time. Nothing has ever come easy to me. Let me just be
No.
very clear about that. I have worked very long and very hard at what I do and to achieve what I have, both with my clients, with the success of my business partnership with Bo, with the product design and the brand, publishing, television. I've done quite a bit of that over the years, and so it's been a long journey, but also a really satisfying one.
Yeah, I was reading that you were on
Oh, American
American
Dream
Dream
Builders,
Builders,
yeah. So
and the
and the real
the
L
real
Word.
L Word.
Yeah. So on Showtime, they had the L Word, which was a hugely successful scripted show about lesbians living in Los Angeles. So
Lesbians in Los Angeles.
imagine that. I mean, where are they hiding? Where are they hiding? I used to joke with the girls on set. We had a great time. But so that show, the scripted show, was hugely successful for Showtime. And when they brought that to an end, they decided to launch this reality version of the show called The Real L Word. And I was featured in the first season of that show. There were two of the ladies who were on the show. Their storyline included them getting engaged and getting married. And they had this big, elaborate wedding. And I was already a designer for the one of them and had done multiple homes for her. So I sort of became a natural extension of their storyline. It was supposed to be just a one shot kind of deal. One day and that sort of thing. Well, it turned into a multi-day shoot and multiple appearances on the show, and so it was fun, and that led to some other programming, and then eventually on to network with American Dream Builders, which was on NBC in primetime. In fact, it was the first design program ever on a major network in primetime.
Is this before like HGTV stuff?
No, no, this was already going, but we're talking about network. Though there was
Okay.
all of this cable programming in that genre, including Queer Eye.
Okay.
It was not, it was never developed for network or put in primetime. Even when Queer Eye became so popular and they took it from Bravo and they started airing it simultaneously. They would put it on NBC and whatnot too. It was just a replacement show, a weeknight kind of thing. This was the very first design show done on network television in prime time. And it was
Okay.
also filmed in HD, and it was a contest related show. It was the largest prize they had ever given on television for such a thing, and so it was a lot of firsts, and so it was fun, and it was nerve wracking, and it was very very difficult.
Is there a big difference in designing for like an individual client versus for a show?
Well, most definitely. First of all, to do the television program, it had to happen like that. I mean, you were just flying by the seat of your pants. You were very
Okay.
limited, not just in your time, but in the scope of the project, the products and materials that you had access to, the timing. It was everything. It was very very difficult. But it was also challenging and fun, and that was part of the fun. So, and here's the other thing, when you have a client, even a difficult client, at least you have that constant interaction. When we did it
Right.
on the show, we're given a small set of parameters, and then you chose how to respond to those parameters. And you were not given any information until a group of judges showed up and said, oh, I like it, or I don't. And if there's one thing we all learned very quickly was it didn't matter if you followed the program or not. You were damned if you do and damned if you don't. And you just had to defend yourself.
That
But the
I
other
don't know
thing
if I
about that program was is that it was the first time they ever used professional designers who were already successful in what they were doing. So
okay.
we all sort of got together and we all talked about it with the producers and said, here's the thing, we can design and we can defend our designs. What we're not going to do is we're not going to talk down to protect the audience when it comes to design. So if I get eliminated, it was not because I didn't do my best work or wasn't proud of the work that I did. It was still a contest at the end of the day, and every week
Mm-hmm.
somebody had to go home.
One of the things that as I've been reading about you, one of the things I like is you just have this philosophy that, and listening to you now, that you sort of carry through this whole living well. Like, and is that
Yeah,
influenced by your traveling? And
I think it is all of it. It's from my earliest days to even now as an adult. I travel a great deal, both for work and for pleasure, and I do a great deal of it alone. I've never minded traveling by myself. I've been to Europe. I've been to Asia. I've been to India and China and all of those places by myself. So
mm-hmm.
I enjoy immersing myself into other places and other cultures and other periods and styles, and so I think
It's
that that's
humbling,
a great
right?
influence on
Yeah.
what my idea of living well is, and that is something that I share with my clients and through my television programming, through my book, through my products. I don't
Mm-hmm.
design anything. I have never designed a product because somebody said to me, "Oh, this is what people want. This is what everybody wants. This is what everybody's buying." In fact, that's a good reason for me not to buy something. Uh, I design products that I love, that I'm looking
Okay.
for, that I want. I'm influenced by products that are maybe in a price point way up here. And then I love taking that style or that influence and creating something that is very accessible, both, price, quality, style wise. And I think that's the success behind my brand is that it is truly high designer style, but at a very accessible and affordable price point.
And does it still bring you as much passion, like thinking about that one product? You get it in your head. Does it still bring you as much passion as that very first product that you
It
created?
really does, but you have to understand. I approach product design differently than most people, I think, and it's because of my design background. So I am a working designer. I am in the trenches every day, fighting the good
Digging.
fight of good taste against bad. And but I'm also the first person to recognize good taste is all relative. So
Yeah, it's
it all
personal.
depends on how you see it. But when it comes to me and my products, I only create what I love. And when I'm thinking of a product, a single product, I never think of this in a bubble. I think of it in relationship to everything else around it. Every piece I
Hmm.
put in a room is a piece of a puzzle. So when I'm thinking of a single piece, I'm already thinking of it in relationship to everything else. And sometimes that relationship is a subtle one. Sometimes it's an obvious or strong one. And sometimes it's bigger. Sometimes it's smaller. Sometimes it's meant to grab your attention. Other times it's meant to reveal itself later. But every piece is a piece of the puzzle. And so that's the way I think about products. So I not only think of the single product, I envision it as part of a vignette or part of a space or a room. And so it gives me a unique perspective in what can sell, or just as important, not a beautiful product, but how do we tell the story of this product? How do we market it? How do we merchandise it? At the markets and in retail and all of the ways that we can sell a product.
It sounds like when you have an idea, you don't rush it, right? You just let it
Well,
evolve how it's. Well,
everything's always a rush today. I'm sorry, but it is. I am also known for moving product lines very quickly. I
really?
am
Okay.
very clear on what it is that I want and what I'm looking for. And though we work with manufacturers literally around the world, we of course zero in on people that we like to work with, who know us, who we know, and through my licensing programs, which are done through multiple companies and multiple manufacturers, we find those places who can do the stuff that I'm looking for. Because every piece of a room, whether it's upholstery or case good or occasional or art or mirror or lamp, all of these things are fabric or wallpaper. All of these, they're done by different manufacturers. No one does it all for you in one place. So there's a lot of coordinating that goes on. The difficulty comes in bringing it all together so that if I'm envisioning this as part of a bigger story, all of those things have to come together at one time. That's the difficulty.
And how does that happen if you've got like, I'm just going to throw a number out there, like 10 products in the works at once
Yeah.
that are supposed to sort of all work together, but they're all being made all over the
Yeah.
place?
That's when it starts taking some time. Being a working designer, I can also say, well, these pieces over here have already come in and I'm waiting for these. But if we already have these in the warehouse, if these are in stock, we want to start making money on them. So we'll move them in and I'll coordinate them with other things. So you can always decorate. You can always design.
Right.
And when I get to pull the whole story together as it was originally envisioned, that's very exciting. But also keep in mind that design is not a science. It's not chiseled in stone. It's not brain surgery. It's something, you get in there and you feel your way around it. And it's constantly evolving and changing. And I change my mind. So there are things that work and things that don't work. And there are products that we're struggling with in the sampling process. And sometimes I just say, let's just stop and put that aside for now. This is not working. Maybe we'll come back to that later. There's always plenty of product. I have well over 650 SKUs of product in the market today, with several hundred more coming in the new year, with a new venture that I've just signed, but hasn't even been announced publicly yet. Maybe I'll do it first here with you, David.
Yay, how exciting.
Yeah. So one of the companies, an old family-owned, 3-generation-old company in the home industry called Stylecraft, is a company that holds the vast majority of my licenses. And it's the first place I'm able to show all of my products together in this lifestyle presentation. So it's been very, very exciting for me. And it's been very successful for them. And so we keep growing that product line. That's already at 600 plus SKUs. And so they came to me recently and said, we want to expand this even more. Your brand has become important to the company and to our buyers. So we want to see these SKUs double quickly. And I wasn't really prepared for that. And so they sweetened the deal by offering me to head one of their other brands. So they have another brand, home brand called Harp Finial. It is a lifestyle brand of products across the board, full lifestyle, from upholstery to case goods to accessories to art to lighting. And I am the new president of that company.
Dan,
so
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
So I will be continuing with all of the Dan Foley lifestyle product. Bo and I will continue to see and work with clients. But I am also starting on November the 1st, 1 month from today, this totally new venture where I will have complete control, not just of my design, but of the product as a whole, from concept through the sale. And that includes the marketing, the merchandising, the manufacturing, the distribution, the sale, all of it. And that is a really, really exciting venture for me.
Wow. Congratulations.
It will become public over the next couple of weeks. High Point Furniture Market, the oldest and still one of the largest in the world, is happening in just 3 weeks in October in High Point, North Carolina. I go twice a year, every year, to represent my products, and Bo and I go to source for clients. But the official announcement will be made to the industry during High Point Market in just a few weeks.
Do you have a showroom in High Point?
The showrooms that I work in are the showrooms that sell my products. So Stylecraft is the main one. Stylecraft is a very large company, and they have 2 showrooms in High Point. So I toggle between the 2 and then take time within the other showrooms where I might have other product lines, generally in a single category, like lighting or rugs or accessories or art or bedding. I have it in all of these things and more coming. So it's exciting.
When you were talking about designing a product and all that goes into that, is is that the same way that you approach a client in like designing someone's home?
There are similarities, but when I'm designing product, I'm only making myself happy. Um,
Right.
with,
Okay.
a client is the same as having a company that holds a license. At the end of the day, I still have to sell the product to
Hmm.
someone to move it forward. And so, but this is a little different. In my product design, I can design dozens of SKUs at a time in different across different categories, and then sample them. And then we do what we call a line review, and we sit down with all of the samples, and I sit down with the CEO of the company, Jimmy Webster Jr. Thank you, Jimmy, for all of the opportunities you've given me. Um, and it's a great company to work for in that our CEO, Jimmy Webster, he is a guy who loves product, and he's a guy with amazing taste. And also a guy who has traveled his whole life. And so he understands that influence. So when I do get to actually sit down with him and review product or talk about product, there's a synergy there that's really, really strong and
Nice.
really energizing.
And was that an influence in creating your book?
The book is something that I've always wanted to do, sort of sharing what I do, and I had an idea for a different book first, but my agent got a hold of my copy of just when I was putting together a sort of coffee table book of my work, but not just a look at me, aren't I great designer, but it was a book that was really meant to inspire and educate the reader, and not just a book you put on the shelf and forget about, but a book that you go to for reference and for advice. And
Hmm.
so I was very fortunate. I have an incredible agent in David Graff at Sungate Partners in New York. But he sold the book to a publisher, Schiffer Publishing, also great partners of mine now. Thank you, Schiffer. Um, within days. And so I signed a 3 book deal with them, which is incredible. Or I should say this, it sounds really incredible, but it's not. If your first book doesn't sell, you don't get to do
Oh,
the other 2 books. So I pitched 3 book idea to them, which impressed them. They said, we want you to start with this book, this idea, and let's see how this does. And if it sells, then we can go into these other 2, which are more learning books about design.
mhm.
That actually, the one I really want to write is about one of the great set designers of the golden era of Hollywood, and how that work still influences me today. That's one I'm just starting to work on. But the first book sold very well, so they've already green lighted the second book. I'm
Nice.
doing the second book now. The difference between the first and the second is the first was really about different types of design and style, and the book was arranged by rooms, living rooms, bedrooms, dining rooms, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
The second book is going to be very concentrated on only 2 houses, 2 projects, one on the East
Okay.
Coast and one on the West Coast, and the similarities and the differences and the convergence of design that takes place between these different clients, different coasts, different styles. And
Hmm.
that I have, look what I have sitting here. That is my first book.
It's
It's
all in the
all in the
mix.
mix. Designs for Living Well by Dan Foley, which you can get on Amazon and you can get at Barnes and Noble. And I am very, very proud of this book. Um, I wrote every word, every bit of copy, but I also had an amazing and fantastic editor that I worked with from Schiffer to put the book together. And so it's been a really exciting year getting it out there and meeting with people and doing book signings and that sort of thing.
What I love is that, I mean, you put your toe in all these different things, right? And so you're constantly learning.
But
Like,
you have to, right? I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what industry you work in. If you don't learn something new every day, then you should probably stop for a minute and think,
what am
what
I
am I
doing?
doing? What am I not doing? Or what am I doing here? Um,
Yeah.
but again, design is a creative process, right? So there's constant evolution and change. And I remain open to that. It's when you start really trying to force your style, or force the look and force the design, that it
Yeah.
becomes difficult and combative and generally a disaster.
Well, I think for most people, I think it's frightening. I think design is frightening.
It is. It is. And I've learned that along the way too. People are scared, but what they're scared of is not the idea of design or living well or being creative or being unique. They're afraid of taking the wrong step. They're
Yes.
afraid of being judged. Uh,
Yes.
or have somebody say, "What's that? Why did you do that?"
Why'd you
Um,
put that with that? Yeah.
and that's very true. People come to us, especially the ones who learn about us through work we've done, but people come to us because we do take uniqueness seriously. We enjoy using color as a way of telling a client's story, and pattern and all of those things that go with it. And it's the design today and retail have become so homogenized
Mm-hmm.
that everybody sells the same thing from one coast to the other and back again, and so
Yeah.
everybody has just a similar version of just a few looks. So I approach each client and each project with a fresh eye. And it doesn't mean that clients don't say, geez, I really love this look or this style, or I saw this house you did, or in your book you showed me this. It's not that we can't use same or similar items. But what I want to make sure is that each interior tells that person's story. If somebody
Mm.
walks into one of my rooms and they says, I know Dan Foley did this, isn't that great? I don't take that as the greatest of compliments. What I love is when somebody walks into a home I've done and says to the owner, wow, this is so gorgeous and it's so you. I just never thought of you this way. Or this is exactly how I pictured you. That's wonderful. And that's really exciting to me because it means that I listened to what the clients were talking about. Some clients just want you, like, here's what I need, do it, call me when you're done. And some clients want to be there next to you the whole time, and or looking over your shoulder. And we have ways of dealing with all of that.
That's amazing. When I was younger, I worked at Saks Fifth Avenue. I was in display,
Mm-hmm.
and when I got the job, I did not know what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so lucky to work under someone who was willing to guide me
Mm-hmm.
because I would do a window. I would throw everything in the kitchen sink in there,
Hey,
and
that's part of the look, right? More is
yeah,
more.
yeah, and then there was this moment where I began to, and I think it's just all part of the learning process, where I began to get self-conscious
Mm-hmm.
about what I was doing and wondering what people were thinking about it.
Yeah.
And my boss, the best advice he ever gave me was keep it really simple
Mm-hmm.
and know that your taste is just as good as anyone else's out here.
Mm-hmm.
All we just need to do is refine it.
Yes.
And
Well, I mentioned that earlier. It's good taste is relative.
yeah,
Everyone sees it through a different lens, and some people are going to like it and some aren't. So as
right.
designers, I kind of, wear my heart on my sleeve and I put myself out there every time, and getting rejected or judged negatively for something, especially when I was younger, was a lot harder. Frankly, now I just don't care.
Yeah.
Really, the best thing that ever happened to me was finally reaching that point where I don't care what you think. And
Yeah.
and by the way, did I ask you for your opinion? I don't remember doing that. So
Well, and you learn too, right, that it's not about you.
right,
It's
right.
it's
If
about what's
one thing
going on with
design television has done is it's given everyone an opinion. So for better or
no, that's
worse.
true.
But some opinions are a little more worthy, right? And I'm simply talking about experience. An
Mm,
opinion that comes backed up by experience in any realm is weightier than one which is just this
mm,
idea of, well, it's my opinion, so that makes it right.
right.
Um, it from a design standpoint, from a creative standpoint, it's more true there than anywhere, right? It's only about how I see it that matters.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, my job is still to sell it to someone else. It's still a business.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
my creative juices flowing. I get that satisfaction in the very beginning during the
Mhm.
initial design process and at the very end when we install. That's great.
Have you been out and about or over to friend's place or somewhere where you just come upon a piece that you designed and you're like, yeah, okay.
Yes, or walking down a street here in Palm Springs or in any city. I travel the country all the time for work. And I've been known to walk down a street and see my products in a window of a design store. I've seen my lamps in Home Goods. Boy, then I knew I was really a success when when they show up there across the country. But yes, and it is really exciting. And I've actually walked into friends' homes and seen products of mine that they didn't even realize were mine, that they bought from a retailer somewhere, or maybe that retailer removed the hang tag as part of their, presentation for whatever reason, which is all well and good. But it was really very exciting for both of us when that happened.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's very cool
Yeah,
when you
it
just come
really
upon
is.
something. Yeah.
It is really. I think it must be
It's,
kind of like hearing your song on the radio or something. I know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool. So,
And in all the years, like, so you've gotten all these awards,
mhm,
right? And you've been on these TV shows.
mhm.
How does that feel? Like through if you worked and you put it all in there and you've been rewarded for this. How does that feel now for
It's
you?
really nice. I have been nominated for industry awards many, 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 many times when I didn't win. I learned along the way that really the recognition truly is the most important piece,
Hmm.
because by getting that recognition, which lasts a lot longer than that moment of saying you won, um, um, it has helped to build my product lines, build my career. I
Mm-hmm.
very much enjoy it. I don't think about those things on a day to day basis. I don't think about, oh, this could get me an award here, or oh, I'm going to make sure I send this in,
Right.
whatnot. I don't do that because then you get too bogged down. Um, but as far as the entirety or the body of my work, um, I love it best when I am recognized or awarded for that, for the entirety of it. A
Yeah.
single product, a single item, a single design, my book, those are very exciting and very, very satisfying, especially after all of these years. But yeah, as fun as it is, it's not something that I ever consider when I'm working.
But when it happens, like if you get product, because in 2024 you won what, product of
I
the
put
year,
product designer of the
designer of the
year
year.
in my industry. Yeah, that was a big one. I've been nominated 9 times for that award. So winning
That's
it,
cool too, though.
that's incredible. I'm not sure anybody has ever been nominated that many times in our industry. I'll have to check that one. But winning it was very satisfying. And it was really nice after 8 nominations or 7 nominations, right? But having been nominated twice now since as well, I just got nominated for this year for
Oh,
2025, and or sorry, 2026. And I've also been named by there's an industry publication, our industry's publication. There are two of them, and one of them is called Designers Today. Designers Today is about the people and the industry. The other is
okay.
called Furniture Today. It's about the product. So I've been featured in that magazine many, many times. But Designers Today each year puts out a list of what they call their power list of designers, you know, globally and with a focus in North America. And I just found out I made that list this year. So that is
Congratulations.
really, really exciting. It's a new milestone for me. Let's put it that way. So that is something I never thought about. It's not something you go out and necessarily, you don't stump for it and say, vote for me. It's an industry publication where the editors of the magazine come together and decide on this list of people from across the industry, and they come up with their power list of the 50 top power people in the industry. Um, And this is the first time I've been added to that list. So that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there is a great satisfaction in after all of these years being able to say, yeah, I got recognized. It's not just me. Somebody else noticed.
They love me. They really love me.
They love me. Yeah, you really, really love me. Anyway,
um,
but it is fun. The recognition is great fun. I speak at markets all of the time. I'm asked to speak about the business of design and licensing and television and publishing and how to build a design firm, all of those things. And everyone I meet with, I don't think I've ever met a designer who doesn't want to have a licensing program.
sure.
But very, very few people have any idea of what it means, or how hard it is and how much work you do and how little
Hmm.
you might actually make. Very few people get to a point in
Yeah.
a licensing program where it's sustainable as a living. It's more just a side hustle. I didn't want just a side hustle. And so, but it took me 10 years now to reach this point where it is um, a legitimate form of income.
What was the reasoning behind wanting to make it accessible and affordable?
Well, the truth is, I work with like medium high and real high end clients. And
Hmm.
so they've got the money. Many of them can have whatever they want. We're talking like the private plane set, right?
Okay.
Um, but I also believe in spending money wisely. I tell all my clients I'll spend every nickel you put on the table, but I promise you I will spend it wisely. And so there are places where you throw money at something and others where you can be and should be more careful. And so what I wanted to do was create a line of products which were accessible, available, and affordable. The three A's of design, I call it. And those products I can use in my projects now too, and I
Sure.
do. Um,
Okay.
but what's really exciting about that is with all of these design programs and online shopping and Pinterest boards and all of that, people, we all of us have access to the images, but very few of us have access to the product. It's just not available.
Right.
You have no idea how to get it, how to find it. I'm trying to make that level of product available to everyone. And that's been my goal. My new Harp Finial project will be a higher end project, a different level of product. That product
Okay.
is meant to be a higher end designer focused product. So that's an exciting part of that project. But the vast majority, all of the Dan Foley lifestyle products, are meant to be accessible and affordable.
There was um it makes me think there was a magazine that used to do, this is the $5,000 piece, and then this is
Yes,
the,
right. The high low, high low.
yeah, high
I
low.
always found that fascinating. I really did. I can't lie. It was, and maybe yeah, somewhere along the line that was part of it. But because I get to handle with and experience and work with super high end product, um, what I have that influence. I also have that access, so I can take the when someone says, "Oh, I've been influenced by something," it doesn't mean that you copy it. It simply
Hmm.
means that you take that experience, that influence of that product, and then I put it through my own filter of experience and create something new with it. And part of that is always making it accessible and affordable. And so I've done that for years. When I first started my first product line, I took some of the pieces that I did as one of a kind pieces and that had to be very. I created a lamp out of nothing. It's going to end up costing a few $1,000s, right? But if
Hmm.
I can take that and take it to a manufacturer and we can work out details and get the same look, but wholesale it, for a couple of hundred instead of, or I should say
Sure.
retail it for a couple of hundred instead of a couple of thousand, that is a hugely successful day for me and an exciting one. And that's
Yeah, yeah.
really how I do products.
Is there a particular project or product line that
Mhm.
you feel
Mhm.
most truly expresses Dan Foley or the Dan Foley lifestyle brand?
You know what? I'm going to say no, but there's a reason, because I've never designed a product I don't love. Um, uh, Only in the very, very, very beginning of my career did I ever design a room I don't like. I could live in
Okay.
any project I have ever completed. I love them that much. And so, and I'm going to go back and remind you that the way I see design, whether it's a single piece or a whole project, is that there are pieces of a puzzle to create the picture. And one piece is not the puzzle. It's all of the pieces that come
Mm.
together that are the puzzle. And so when I flip through my own book and I see contemporary spaces and I see traditional spaces and I see transitional spaces, or especially when I go into the section of the book where I have before and after, so that you can
Hmm.
see really what the beginning was, what we were given, and see just how big a vision can be. That's why I can't say, look, every season there are pieces I end up loving more than others, but I truly do. I'm proud of every one of them. I live with some of them, although a lot of times I live with the original that I purchased. Which makes me even
Oh.
luckier, I think, at times. I took a page out of Ralph Lauren's book that way. There are many pieces in his home collection, in his furniture line, that started with him being traveling or in Europe and buying an antique this and bringing it home and maybe recovering it in his own fabrics and then saying, this is mine now. And then he literally would copy that antique chair and then reupholster it his way. And it is a Ralph Lauren chair. And here we are 30 some years later in his home business, and he's still selling those same pieces because great design has great longevity. And I that's always in the back of my head, and his recent passing sort of has made it louder to me. And so anyway,
Would you would you ever want to get to a point where you actually have your own storefront that's just Dan Foley?
I don't really have an interest in brick and mortar. At this point, it's too difficult. In America, they've sort of screwed the pooch, where it's
Yeah.
like, unless it's on sale, people aren't going to buy it unless it's the cheapest. And so I have
Yeah.
no interest in fighting for the bottom. Um,
Mm.
what I do enjoy about presentation and merchandising, I get to do at the markets in our showrooms. Part of my
Okay.
deal with all of my licensing partners is that I get to design, or not dictate, but design the merchandising of the product. So it's going to be
Mm.
displayed in the way that I see fit. Design the space, build it out like it's a design project. Pick the color, pick a wallpaper, pick this, that, the, and create these spaces to present and sell the product within. That speaks to who I am as a designer, not just
Hmm.
the one product or products, but tells a story of who I am. Yeah.
And what I love and what I hear from you is that you you enjoy every aspect of it. You seem to just love every part of it.
In embracing the not just the experience but the process, it makes it more enjoyable, so that I recognize that this is going to be a tough road, um, but that is part of being creative, and it's not happy from beginning to end. It's a process, and you feel your way through it and you get your fingers dirty and
Hmm.
you make changes along the way and you shift positions and you shift gears, and sometimes you set something aside and you keep going over here. And that is the process, whether it's a product line, or a project with clients. The process is the same. Enjoying the process is the trick, and not getting bogged down in that. Am I making the right decision? And are you sure this
Mm.
goes with that? And those sort of things. And that's where I hold clients' hands, or sometimes cover their eyes, or sometimes just tell them to step aside. Let me do my job.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of what we were talking about earlier, right? That people get scared or
Yes,
they judge,
yes.
and using your experience and you as inspiration, they can feel a little more freer or open. Because I also do graphic design, and everybody wants to be a designer. So
Yes, they do.
yes,
Everyone
they do.
thinks they're a designer too. Let me add
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
that.
But what I had discovered over the years is that let them be the designer. Let them.
Oh, you're so right. What a great way of putting that, David. It's true. I think that if they
You're the
want to be a part of the
conduit.
process, let them be a part of the process. And
Yes.
part of enjoying the process for me is educating a client. And I'm not
Yes.
saying I'm going to show you what's good and what's not good, or I'll show you a good taste over bad taste. By educating them, I mean helping them to see things differently. I
Yes.
always say a client's idea of what they're looking for is a very narrow vision. And
Hmm.
my job is to help them remove those blinders, to show them just how big of an idea it can be. And
Hmm.
so that educational part is great because you see them evolve and them change. I have many clients that we've worked with multiple times over the years who will say to me very jokingly, like, I hate you because now I can't see anything in the same way again. Whether I go to a restaurant or I'm in a hotel room, I see things so differently. I'm more critical. But I
That's
talk a lot
true.
about that in the book and how that should work for everyone, and that inspiration is personal and unique
Hmm.
to each one of us. And so there's not a good or bad, or let's say there are very, very few times when I just say, no, that's not the best idea. But I never say, forget it. I'll say, this idea works better with this. If this is where we are, let me suggest this. What do you think? We can switch, we can shift gears. We can
Hmm.
go over here if you want. But part of making great design and making beautiful rooms and beautiful homes is to finish them. They're supposed to be
Yes.
done. If you never finish them, you're never happy. And at some
Right.
point, then you want to blame me for that, and I won't allow that to happen.
No, no,
So,
no.
yeah, I've been around too long for that one. So yes, but again, part of the process is being able to say, "Look, I'm done." It doesn't mean it can't change and evolve over time. But
Yeah.
my goal was to do this room or to do this home and to finish it and be happy and have beautiful things and share it with my friends and family and all of those things that go with living well. And you need to get to that point too. You can't just say, well, that'll be done next year, but you know, and it doesn't have to be done all at once. It can be an ongoing process. Um,
Right. That was going to be my next question, because it's also, it evolves as you evolve, right? As you
Absolutely,
grow.
every project does. We're
Yeah.
working on an incredible project here in Palm Springs right now with clients. It's a secondary home for them, and their level of the understanding of design and detail is probably the deepest I've ever worked with in all of these years. And so the process has become considerably slower, but not because we're bogged down by anything, but because we can get into the nitty gritty of this is how the baseboard should fit. And this is the
Mhm.
space that should be in between that there, because we all feel strongly about that and we recognize the beauty of the minutest of details. So
Mhm.
it's been a real pleasure for me, but it's also been a project that on in theory, or when we talk about it in terms of other projects, has taken the longest, because of
Mhm.
that. And there have been any number of changes along the way, and some of them quite significant. But in every case, whether it's a project we're moving quickly on, or in this one where we're really stepping carefully, in
Mhm.
every case, changes happen for a reason. And I've never, ever in 38 years said, here's a change we had to make that was for the worse. Every
Mm.
change I have made to every item or every room of every project has been a positive one that has moved the design forward every single time. And it's one of
Okay.
the only times I can guarantee you that it will be better, is because if we are forced to make a change for whatever reason, I know that what it does is it forces us to consider the whole design again, and that moves the design forward, always. There are always old houses that have those quirky little things or corners. Well, that's charming. But, and those are things you work with, you live with. But there are other projects like this one here where it's a contemporary and we're building it. You can't have that odd little corner because you'll say, what, you couldn't work that out? So, and that's the way that works.
Do you find that you are still surprised or inspired by other designers' work?
Oh, not in the least. I'm surprised and inspired by designers every single day. I have a list as long as my arm of designers who I greatly admire. And I would like to say that I am positively influenced by men and women both. Some you might know, some maybe just are more industry known. There are people like Thomas Pheasant in Washington, D.C., who I have followed for 30 years and have had the privilege of knowing at times, and or people like Barry Dixon from Virginia, who is just this incredibly creative designer who starts from a very traditional place. And it still remains that feeling. He can take anything old and make it new and fresh. And he happens to be a great guy. Or celebrities you might know, like Tom Felicia from the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, who is not only an incredible creative, but just an incredible person. And I'm proud to call him a friend. In fact, he wrote the foreword of my book. And so I could go on and I can go back to people who aren't around anymore, people like Billy Baldwin or Sister Parrish, or Albert Hadley, and all of these people who have gone before me, whose work is still relevant today for its lasting style and quality and good taste.
And do you still watch old movies and still feel that?
Constantly. My cloud is full of them. In fact, I probably know more history on any given old film, especially MGM and Warner Brothers, than anyone I know, because that's what interests me. The production, the design, the people, those people, especially the golden era, 30s and 40s into the 50s. I can name them. You may find a book about one of them a little later, but it's one that I've been working on for years.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, even reached out to MGM to access their archives, and they were very happy to give me that access. So that was very exciting. And we'll make the book better for it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, I it's been an hour, and I told you this would only be an hour.
Wow.
And I so appreciate you sitting down with me and talking about this. I could keep going on because
listen, I love design. I could talk about it all day, David. You do. You have to cut me off at some point. But this has been a real thrill and privilege for me as well. And
thank you.
This is just such a great platform, your show, for me to come to. And I was very flattered when you asked. So I'm just so happy to be here.
Well, 6 months down the road in your new position, we'll have to sit down again and talk about all the things you've been doing.
I'll walk you through our war room. That's where all the product from all the companies comes together for review.
I would love that.
Yeah, you can see how design really works.
Yeah.
And that it's just a job.
So we can find your book. It's all in the mix.
Yes, Designs for Living Well by Dan Foley. And you can find it on Amazon. You can also find it on barnesandnoble.com, or just Google it.
Okay, and I'm going to put a link to your website, danfoleylifestyle.com,
Please.
Which I think there's a link on there to the book.
There is. There is. Yeah. You can find it there as well.
So I'll put that.
Hey, on Amazon, it ships for free. Don't forget.
Thank you, Dan Foley.
Thank you, David. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Queer Point of View, Friends, Loves, and Life. You can find me on Substack, YouTube, and Blue Sky, all at David Bigor. DM me some questions, send me some ideas, or just say hi. If you have a moment, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm David Bigor. Until next time, be bold, be free, and most of all, be you.